and what is dealing with that myself. But I'm very happy to introduce again today for part 3 of my virtual romance, a tale of love, deceit, and financial ruin. And our guest is Karina. Welcome, Karina, to my show. Thank you.
Thank you for having me again. Happy to be here.
I love talking with you, and we share a lot in common. So, don't we? Shows a generation there because I'm 81 and you're in your 40s. Wow. But we, it shows that there's no one who can escape a incorrect decision at some time or another. We're all gonna, I can't believe that, like you said once before. Uh, is there anybody out there that's never made a mistake? or, or never bought something you wish you hadn't, been scammed. So here's Karina. Welcome again today.
Thank you.
Part 3, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about legal ramifications and maybe recovery from all this and so on. But I'm wondering where we should start here. You got an idea?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to just do a quick recap. First, I wanted to do a plug for John Oliver because he had an episode on Sunday night that outlined exactly what pig butchering is. And what's really nice about his episode is that it's on mainstream media, and so more awareness about the scam, this particular specific kind of scam is getting out there. So I think that's the key to all of this because we know that law enforcement isn't quite fully educated or equipped with the resources to handle these crimes. And so, really, the only way to eliminate feeding these, nefarious activities or bad actors, we could call them, overseas is really just widespread education and awareness so that the likes of you, myself, anyone really can just be aware of the tactics that are used to court people into investment scams. So I think I just wanted to throw that out there because it aired on Sunday night. And it felt very validating to watch his episode. Whether you like him or not as a comedian or politically, it doesn't matter because it's incredibly informative about the whole process of the scam. So I know we kind of spent the last couple episodes outlining it, but I can just do a quick recap for the audience if it's their first time joining in this episode before we get into like all the recovery tactics that I employed to help get me to the place I am today. But pig butchering is a scam where Southeast Asian criminals have employed human traffic victims to reside in these scamming compounds to basically, and the hundreds and thousands of people to, against their will, to scam people in the US and Canada. And it's potentially going to spread to Europe and other places as more languages are being adopted by various folks in other regions of the globe. So what the pig butchering scam is basically is a way to target their victims is through dating apps or social media platforms to basically court a person into a romance and gain their trust and compliance over the course of, it could be a month to several months. It's a very long con because the ultimate goal is to get that person to trust the scammer in a way that they would usually not trust probably anyone else in their life because that person becomes their confidant to then invest in a cryptocurrency platform, which is fraud. So you think you're investing in a platform that's going to give you gains that help you, in my case, pay off student loan debt and in a quick way. So it's desirable in that sense. But you're also in this long con of thinking that you're developing a relationship with somebody that is going to be your ultimate, future partner for life. So it's kind of a twofold um, deceit, in that it's a romance scam and it's a financial scam. So I see some questions popping up in the feed, and it's hard not to address
You
them.
saw that too. Okay,
But yeah, is there justice for people who fall into these scams? Unfortunately, we're not in a place where people do retrieve their funds back. And I kind of went into it a little bit last time. But the reason is, and I'll just kind of walk through quickly what I did once I found out I was in a scam. I went to law enforcement, local law enforcement. And that officer didn't know anything about crypto. And that's the thing, is not a lot of people know about crypto, which is also another reason why it's such a sophisticated crime. They're utilizing a platform and a digital currency that not a lot of people know how to use or know anything about. So unless you take the time to research or take courses on learning how it works, you kind of just take it at face value, that you're, learning how to trade through this scammer and making profits. But at any rate, going to law enforcement, for me, did not, even to this day, I haven't received any real feedback on the status of my investigation. So, and that's because when I went to the officer, he didn't know anything about crypto, and his concern was mostly about the scammer, the images and the contact information of the person that they were using, the identity theft. So basically, the person that they confiscated from the web somewhere, and use that person's images and videos to scam me and a multitude of others, I'm sure. The police officer was mostly concerned, and we both were, because we both didn't know what pig butchering was, about this person. Like, how, where is this person, and how many other people are they scamming, and all of that. So I was encouraged when I contacted Coinbase, the exchange that I used on my own, to file an IC3 report, which is basically a web form that you fill out. It's an FBI report. So I did all the things. I reported to FBI, I reported to local law enforcement what had happened and all the transactions I made and all the money that I lost. But it wasn't for another 3 to 4 weeks that I learned really what happened to me, which is the pig butchering scam. And that's because I just found an article that was published on a website called Aura, where they explained step by step exactly what happened to me. Met the person on a dating app. They moved me from the dating app to WhatsApp, courted me over the course of 4 to 6 weeks before bringing up crypto. I mean, they did bring up crypto before that, but before I actually did a significant investment into their fraudulent platform. And then basically that's, the whole stages of the pig butchering. And if I didn't make it clear before, in this article, when I read it, 3 to 4 weeks after I found out it was a scam, they had identified the 4 different steps as being the fattening of the pig, which is where they get you to like them and trust them. It's also called the packaging. And then the raising, so where they kind of get you addicted to that communication, the romance part. And then the killing, which is where they start taking your money that you think you're investing for profits. But basically, the second with which you are dropping it into their platform, it's being moved from address to address to address, and then eventually cashed out into an exchange within 4 to 5 days of you depositing your funds in there. So that's called the killing. And then the final stage is when you're basically depleted and you have no more money to give, and you try to withdraw your funds. They say that you have to pay a security verification to withdraw your funds. And that's considered the slaughter, I guess you could say, the butchered. You are butchered at this point because from snout to tail, you have been butchered, depleted of almost, your life savings in some cases. the amount of money that I lost seems insignificant compared to a whole slew of people that I've seen in the media since I've learned about this scam. People have lost millions of dollars. In fact, last week, an article came out about a guy who was the CEO of a bank in Kansas who basically invested into this crypto platform, but used funds from the bank, embezzled funds from the bank to support this scam. Obviously, finding out it's a scam, losing all of that money, the bank collapses. Um, it's awful. It's just awful. And there's people who get to the state of wanting to commit suicide because they feel like they have no other option to get out of this mess. And so, long story short, probably too late for that. Um, for me, once I found out it was a pig butchering scam, I started networking through LinkedIn and finding people who were crypto investigators and trying to understand how, if it was even possible to get my money back. Because I didn't know what I know today, which is, that you can't because the money just moves way too fast. And law enforcement has to know almost immediately that what's happened to you is a pig butchering scam so that you can give them your wallet addresses and within 24 hours they can trace and potentially even freeze the funds in the exchange that they're trying to cash out in so that they can actually give it back to the victims. I'd mentioned Erin West before, which I think you might be having on your show in the future. She's a Santa Clara County prosecutor who I connected with, who has actually had success in doing this for, I think, up to 26 victims in the Santa Clara County. I'm just in the next town over from that. And the officers that I was working with didn't know anything about it. So it just goes to show how unknown and not well reported this is, because the more people that report, the better, because that's only going to help institutions like law enforcement get more funding to have the resources to be able to caveat and maybe even freeze and get the funds back for the victims. But in most cases, it's a long shot. You're not going to get your money back, and I've also come to terms with that at this point. I'll never get the money back that I put into this platform. But it's something that obviously I had to make huge adjustments in my life as a result. And that was probably one of the harder parts of this whole thing, was just, I think I mentioned last time I lost my job through this. Our site had shut down. I was in the biotech industry. Fortunately, the same job or company rehired me into another role. And it's a remote position because I couldn't afford to live in the Bay Area anymore. And my mom lives in the middle of California, so a little bit less expensive of an area. But I basically sold all of my furniture. I moved in. I'm still living at home in my mid 40s. It was a little bit of a psychological adjustment for me to have to do that at this age. So there's been a lot of concessions as a result of losing all the money that I lost. But if we're going to talk about recovery a little bit, I do also feel like there is a silver lining to all of this, because one of the things I learned about myself through this whole thing, and my friends and support system, is that it was there and I had it all along. All the people that I told that this has happened to me have been incredibly gracious and compassionate and empathetic, which showed me that I had pretty exceptional friends and family support in my life.
Yes, I would say that's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that sense, I feel very lucky, because I know that's not the case for everyone. I'm in 2 different peer support groups that I continually still go to for romance scams. And it's not the case for a lot of people in those support groups. The support group is all they have. They don't feel safe telling their friends or family. And that's the part that I feel very fortunate that I've been able to confide in the people that I needed to for that support,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I've received that support. Obviously, it goes without saying, my mom and her husband, so my stepfather, have been instrumental in my healing, because not only did they provide a place for me to live while I get my, you know, back on my feet with my finances, paying off all the debts that I've now accumulated. Um, you know, they've provided me resources. Like, I wanted to mention a couple really great books that I've read. One of them is called Reframe Your Brain by, I think it's Scott Adams. And there's a whole bunch of different ways you can kind of reframe the way you think about things to live a more fulfilling and potentially happier life. One of the things, I could go through and say and give myself a continual pity party and just, why me? Why did this happen to me? But instead, reframing that to, the universe owes me good luck. But the universe isn't just going to hand it over to me. I have to take action. I have to mobilize. I have to do all the things in order to receive that good luck. It's not just going to happen to me. And so I think that message really resonated with me, because I knew I just couldn't sit around and feel sorry for myself. Don't
Mhm.
get me wrong, I did sit around and feel sorry for myself for a little while. um, but because I had a roof over my head, I got a new job. Things started
Mhm.
slowly going in the right direction for me. I signed up to do a half Ironman triathlon. I've started meeting more people in Sacramento, where I live now, and just networking and um, putting myself in places of high energy. And um, and I can't even begin to tell you, I feel more supported and have such a great group of new friends, even that I never thought imaginable at the time of me finding out this was a scam. Um, so I feel like not only has that helped in my recovery and healing, but for me, what was essential is understanding what happened to me, this crime, this organized crime. And so I took it upon myself to fully educate myself on how cryptocurrency works, how criminals are using it to perform these nefarious activities. Um, and so that became essential to my healing, because it was empowering to fully understand how all of it worked. And I think I mentioned last time, I just took a cryptocurrency course, traced all of my own transactions. Um, and now it's just a matter of sending those addresses where there's still active um, uh, wallets being used to receive and send funds to exchanges in Southeast Asia, um, to mobilize law enforcement to do something, to basically investigate, or at least add them to, the profile of scammers'
Mhm.
addresses, so that more victims aren't putting money into these wallets. Um, they, that's the side of things I'm not 100% familiar with, how all of that works. All I know is what I can do for myself, um, for my own healing. And that's what I've done, is I've taken it upon myself to basically do my own investigation.
Mhm.
And I wish it wasn't like that. I wish I had someone in my corner, like, tracing all my transactions for me and telling me exactly what they're going to do next.
Mhm.
Um, and then potentially there is that investigation could be going on in the background. I don't
Mhm.
know. And I report it to all the different agencies, but for me, I just had to understand and know, to feel better, that I've done everything I could on my own, to investigate this and understand it better, to then almost like hand it over as a gift to law enforcement.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
here, look, I've done 80% of the work for you. Now I need you to subpoena these exchanges, or
Right.
that sort of thing. And again, the money's gone. I don't care about that so much anymore. The part that still needs to be mobilized is just making sure that more victims aren't continuing to be able
Mhm.
to get
Mhm.
scammed by these same bad actors, who all these wallet addresses and exchanges belong to. Um, so I think those are probably two of the main things. Knowledge for me is empowering. Um, Having the support system in place with family and friends, and feeling very fortunate that I have that as a resource. Um, Continuing to put myself in places of high energy with my, triathlon training um, and simple things like eating healthier and just the
Getting
basic
busy,
things.
getting yourself out there and doing it to active helps
Yeah,
you a lot. This is like walking, I guess. You feel a lot better once you've gone for a walk.
yeah,
Doing something physical like dancing. Love to dance, and it really helps to alleviate some of the pain from the past because you don't think about it so much anymore. That's great. Yeah.
yeah.
There was a
I think.
question. Oh,
Oh
go
yeah,
ahead. Oh, but there was a question about a grant uh, or support group.
yeah.
I don't know anything about grants. I know that I started this podcast, this radio show to help uh, get this information out there about scams and about dealing
Mhm.
with other issues, of course, and about recovery and resilience. That's a new word for me. Road to resilience from uh, well, I can't think of it right now. But we're healing uh,
Mhm.
from pain to healing and a road. Do you know anything about the grants, or is that person still out available?
I see the question also. Is there any way for you to get a grant to start a company that gathers information from victims to help law enforcement find these thieves? Great question. There are actually, I mentioned Aaron West's office before, but there are different cohorts of investigators across the states that are tackling it. They just need to get unified. The goal is to be able to have a triage place that when law enforcement receives the information from the victim, they can just send it off to like some centralized place for them to trace the crypto and then find out the origin.
Mhm.
One of the things, because I've met a few different law enforcement through the crypto investigation course that I took, um, one of the things I learned is if the exchanges are in other countries where we don't have jurisdiction, they can choose not to cooperate with us. There's nothing that holds them accountable to working with the US government. We can subpoena them and seize and find out the IP address potentially of the scammer that, cashed out the funds from an exchange. And I may have mentioned this last time, but that person is probably just um, someone who's agreed to have their account be used for the money laundering purposes. But this is part of a larger organized crime. So the way we like to call it now is that it's a transnational organized crime, meaning that it's going to take more than local law enforcement to combat this. This is going to be like a US government national led program or alliance with other countries to be able to infiltrate these bad actors because they're based and originating from Southeast Asia. And they're probably expanding beyond to other places like Northern Africa, where they speak other languages and can target um, Europe, for example. So there is a great documentary on Al Jazeera, which is a pretty reputable media outlet, about these families that have originated in China. And I call them families because they're essentially gangsters. It's like the mafia, equate it to the mafia here. But basically, these families that were kicked out of China because they were scamming people in China using the pig butchering method, and they were actually relocating to Myanmar because the laws and rules are different in Myanmar. And what happened is, and if you watch the John Oliver pig butchering episode on Sunday night, he goes through and explains it very clearly. Um, these criminal families who relocated to Myanmar are occupying casinos that have been abandoned as a result of COVID. So, the beginning of COVID, when no one could go into work, everybody was at home, isolated.
Mhm.
They turned those casinos into these scamming compounds in Myanmar. And so that's where they started recruiting people who thought that they were going to get a job working in IT or computer graphics. So it's a whole nother scam going on over there, where the people who are being infiltrated into these scamming compounds are also victims, because they have no idea that as soon as they are flown into Myanmar or Thailand to do the job that they thought they were going to be doing or that they were recruited to do, their documentation is being taken away, and then they're held captive and required to scam Americans for 16 hours a day, and they're given these fake profiles to do so. So just, I don't know if that helps answer that question, but the reason why it's a much larger issue is that it goes beyond local law enforcement. We have to mobilize as a whole country. And because it's a transnational organized crime and we don't have jurisdiction in these other countries, those law enforcement agencies have to be willing and ready to work with us as well, to take down these bad actors. And unfortunately, some of these officials in these governments in high-ranking positions are helping to facilitate the scam as well. So it's too big, and that's why it feels overwhelming to be able to tackle it on that side. So the real only way to tackle it is through public widespread education, so that they can't continue to take money from the people abroad or even in their own countries.
Mm-hmm. It's
So that's really the
educating our
way.
law enforcement right in their own local area. I guess I
Mm-hmm.
need to get out and do some talking. I just kind of, they patted me on the back and said, you won't get your money back. We're sorry about it, but there's nothing you can do about it. That was 3 years ago. So I don't think that my local enforcement people would know that much more about it now, unless I do something about it myself. So I have to.
And I think it's just having the good practice when you're online. Like it's almost like there needs to be a course, for everybody who decides to go online for dating or any kind of social engagement with someone you don't know. And it's just, I don't know what it needs to be called, like internet hygiene or something, but just basically, there's certain tools like Google reverse image. There's also the Dark Knight website, which I use to find and identify my scammer, or the identity that they used. And that's the 48-year-old gay male model slash business owner in Texas. And it was definitely a mind twist when I found him on Instagram, and I watched all the videos he posts, and heard his voice for the first time, because I had a completely different image. He's supposed to be, this Dutch guy, from the Netherlands. And, it's just definitely a mind twist to see that for the first time, who he really was. And he's aware that his images and videos are being used to scam people. He's posted multiple videos about it. I don't think he's interested in helping to raise awareness or help the cause necessarily.
He's not even educated in what's really going on there. Do you think? Maybe?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, and I don't think he's interested in learning either, because it doesn't seem that way. And so yeah, it's just one example though of, I'm sure they find these very attractive looking people online to use, who are prolific on social media and have a large presence, to be able to have the multitude of images and videos of that person to scam. So yeah, it's a huge operation, very sophisticated.
If I wanted to do something locally, like, I mean, people maybe that don't watch podcasts or don't watch talk shows, maybe in the community, who would I approach to say, hey, I want to do a talk about internet hygiene, about pig butchering, or whatever? Where would I start?
I mean, that's a great question. I don't know. I'm not much of a internet person myself.
Local Chamber of Commerce, maybe. was a member
Yeah,
of
I think,
that, but
one of
I'm
the
not
things,
sure if, or to go to the city government people and try to sell them on
I was
the
just gonna say that,
internet.
one of the things
I
I
wonder
wanted
if
to
people would
do.
go out to a local, what do you call it when you have a local, like the presidents, when they're, they'll have these little gatherings in different areas to talk with
Yeah,
maybe.
like a town hall or something.
What is it called? I
Yeah, it
can't.
doesn't hurt to basically go to your local government. And that's something I plan on doing also. I do have a friend who's in politics here who could probably introduce me to an assembly person in the government. So just starting in California to raise awareness, because I'm sure there aren't very many politicians that know what this is or what it's about, or how to stop it through public widespread education. So they could help facilitate that for sure, being in the positions that they're in. So first is educating them. So I think that's a great first step, is to educate your local city police, not just police, but government officials. Whether they need to have billboards or you know, uh, guidelines for dating websites. I am also part of a initiative to help raise awareness through some of the crypto exchanges, so that before you do any crypto trading, that you're aware of this pig butchering scam.
Mhm.
To be honest, I think that these dating websites, and whatever, Meta, all the different social um, opportunities for social engineering websites
Mm.
could do a better job of educating people that go on to them about this. Maybe there should just be a little 30-second video that everybody has to watch just to be informed. These are the 3 steps. These are the 3 things to look out for. I mean, it's a playbook. Once I read what the scam was, it is a playbook. And if you don't know about it, you could also be a victim of it. So,
Okay.
um, yeah,
You mentioned Dark Knight. That's where you found, is it darkknight.com or how do you get to that?
I have to look it up.
Oh,
But I think
okay.
it's just Google Dark Knight reverse image or image search. You should be able to find it. I
Oh,
found it
okay.
through another website, which I found, which is called aars.org. It's advancing awareness or advocating awareness for romance scams. What's interesting about AARS is it's a nonprofit that was founded by a woman who had been scammed, and then also the identity theft victim of the guy whose pictures were used to scam her. So the two of them got together and started this nonprofit organization.
Hmm.
It's AARS, so you can also Google
And
that as
is that
well.
Anne wrote, or is that what's
That's
the
a
name?
different one. Yep,
That's
that's
a
a
different.
different one.
Oh,
That's Love Said.
I
Um,
haven't figured out exactly who the originators are of the AARS.
yep, it's a someone named Kathy Waters,
Oh, is that
and
who it is? Okay.
Brian something. I can't remember his last name, but it's a nonprofit organization that basically, as soon as I wrote into her, she connected me to various support groups. There's a cyber
Mhm.
peer support group, and then also a romance scam support group that I joined. This woman, Kathy Wilson, published a book about romance scams and all the different psychological manipulative techniques that are used.
Mhm.
And she also has her own support group.
Do you know what
So
the name of that book is?
it's
Okay.
called,
Or
let me
no?
look at it.
Well, the
um,
AARS is advocating against romance
it's
scammers.
the
Okay, what is
emotional
this one?
impact,
The
the emotional
educational
impact of being
impact of being
scammed.
scammed. Oh, by Kathy Wilson. Oh, that's great to know. I re-
And then there's this other really great book that I read, and I have it right here because I'm always reading it. It's called Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion by
oh,
Robert Cialdini. Um, he uh, basically outlines, and it's mostly for, I think, marketing and advertising industries, but it just was eye-opening to learn about all the different techniques that are used to basically get somebody to say yes. Um, and it's I think a lot of people in the military actually use this book for different to learn all the different techniques that can be employed in different um, activities um, across the globe. There's a good chapter in there about the Korean War and just how great the Chinese are and have been at manipulation techniques. So it was just eye opening to learn all of that. And again, for me, education has been empowering just to learn all the different psychological manipulative techniques. And it also helps you have a new perspective on people in general. Just learning when you're having a genuine versus disingenuous conversation with someone, um, learning what people's true intentions are when they say certain things, do certain things, or don't do certain things. So anyway, it's been a
Mhm.
whirlwind, but a lot of great resources out there for people who want to learn more about the psychology of the manipulation and also the support groups that are out there for people who are recovering from these scams. Of course, you don't realize how prevalent all the information is that's out there with regard to this until it
Mhm.
happens to you. Because, of course, I wouldn't be searching for all of this or learning about all of this until I had personally experienced it myself and knew what it was even called to move forward and research it appropriately. So, um, yeah.
Could you give me some suggestions as to how I could find a local support group? I mean, I've scammed twice, obviously. The romance scams all over. That's what my book is about. But I never told very many people that I got scammed again with this investment, this congestion. Um, I
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't want. I mean, I didn't take my own advice in some ways, but on the other way, I felt the marketing people at the company that published my book, the second one, I felt a lot like he was using the same techniques that the scammer used on me.
Possibly.
And that book influence you said has to do with marketing and that.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, it's not just for
uh,
marketing, it's for it's just techniques that people have learned to use that work on people. Because we're the biggest, the easiest flaw. Getting
uh,
into somebody's brain and manipulating their emotions is the easiest
mhm.
way to accomplish, at least for these scammers, to accomplish what they want in the end. And so getting somebody to say yes and having influence over their decisions and coercing them to make certain decisions are the results of various different manipulative techniques that are outlined in that book.
Uh,
Um, and
and that was influenced by who is the other
uh,
Robert?
it's
Robert
called Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion. Robert Cialdini. I'll just put it up here for people
C
to see.
A Cial
Dini.
Doniene. Okay. Yeah, I'm very interested in that, and the other one also. Um,
This one
I
here:
I didn't have a support group.
The
The
Emotional
emotional
Impact of Being
impact.
Scammed and How to
That's right.
Recover by Kathy Wilson.
Okay. I didn't have anybody to talk to except my family. In fact, at first, with the romance scam, I wasn't intending on telling anybody that I sent money
And
to this person because I had bragged out, no, I won't do that. No,
it,
I won't do that. And I
well,
had
it's
a lot of
embarrassing,
requests. I
right?
had a lot of requests that I returned down. But the one guy, it wasn't even love. It was it said he was in China and he'd been beaten, he'd been left for dead. The police thought he was involved with the murder of this other guy, and he was starving. He didn't have any money. And I thought, this has got to be a scam. It's too bad, you know. The emergency was really over the top. And so I figured it must be a scam, but there was this other thing in me from my Christian bring up, that could I let this man die of starvation in China? And he found my weakness, and that was where it was, you know. Some people go to China and they never come back. Some missionaries go to different countries and get caught and never come back. And so all of that played a big part in my vulnerability, I guess. But who did I don't know if I
And
would
that's
have
what makes them so
told me about
good.
it if I had the bank refused to let me have the second set of money I was going to send to them. They recognized things about me that look like suspicious. In fact, when we finally sat down, and Miss Wagner, we think you are being victimized. And okay. And then they said they had called my daughter because she was on my bank account. You know, they'd called her.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, you know, the cat was out of the bag. So when I got back to her house where I was living, and I started talking about it, I thought she already knew. And when I got through telling her about it, she says, "Oh, gee, I had some strange telephone numbers on my on my caller list, but I didn't answer the phone because I didn't recognize them." And I thought, "Oh boy, me and my big mouth, you know." um, but I guess it
Well, I
was
think
all.
that's what makes them so good is understanding what your vulnerability and weakness is and preying upon it. So,
There was a lady in England, Louise Keeney. Did you see that on LinkedIn the other day? She said her mother was victimized similar to what we were, and she blamed her mother for being so naive, I guess, or dumb, you know. So she's going to be here 2 weeks from today, and she's going to talk to us about that. And I thought, wow, that's exactly how I felt, you know, the first time. The
mhm.
second time my kids were involved and I wouldn't listen to them with this investment thing. And because I needed that money so bad. And I think that's other people maybe get trapped in the same kind of thing. What is the average person at credit card debt today? Um, I don't know. I get things in the email all the time about credit card debt to $10,000, 20,000, or even more. You know, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Um,
human nature to try to find a way to, you know, dig our way out of the ditch that we've done, the hole we've done, or something. I don't know, but I'm glad that your mom and your stepdad stepped in and helped you that way. My daughter and my son did the same. But yeah, it
I
does
think our
run.
family can surprise us.
Pardon?
Our family can surprise us. And I try to articulate that to some of the people in our support group as well, who are just so fearful of confiding in their family because of the shame, the guilt,
Right.
the embarrassment of it.
Hmm.
Um, so that's where the education piece continues to come in, is also teaching others to have empathy, because I'll always go back to, what I said last time, which is, are you telling me that you've never been manipulated in your entire life? Are you telling
Right.
me you've never been lied to and didn't know that person was lying to you?
Hmm.
This is just one form of it. And with the internet opening up the world to speak to each other from across the globe, um, you know, cons and scammers have been around forever. This is just a new way of doing it in our modern era. Um, and they perfected it. The reason it continues to happen is because it works.
That's very, very true. That it works, right? On our need, on our human need. And I want to thank you, Karina, for sharing your story with us. And I want to tell listeners, if you missed the first two parts of these episodes, they are on the podcasts out there, but you can listen anytime you want to on demand at my website, learningtodanceintherain.com. And I thank you for being here today with us. And I invite you to come back next week. I'll have Pastor Carl again, and we're going to be talking about a happier subject, hopefully, love. Navigating the maze of love. But I really appreciate Karina being here, and please keep in contact and come back again sometime. Okay.
I will for sure.
All
Thank
right.
you for
And
having me
Shelby
again.
Wagner, author at gmail.com, if you would like to write to me, and we'll try to find answers to your questions. Um, um, I'll call Karina whenever I need to.
Please do.
Okay, thank you very much. And goodbye, everybody. We're signing off for today. We'll see you next week. Learning to